before class, Tanya asked me a very interesting question about Rudy when he would go to India and how hard he would prepare for his trip. For a month before, he would work, he would get himself stronger, he would prepare himself for the spiritual ordeal, if you will, of dealing with his own teacher, with Swami Muktananda, who could create ordeals for people. And Tanya was wondering about that kind of effort and how it applied to the work that we're doing here. And it really comes down to a very essential aspect of this practice, very much at the core of what Rudy taught, was that there is something that he called work. Not only did he call it work, he called this practice work, effort. The effort to get somewhere. And for a good 40 years of my practice, effort was at the center. I really wanted to be worthy of the gift of spiritual awakening or spiritual energy. I wanted to be strong enough to hold it if and when it ever arrived. I wanted to be cleansed and pure and available to this energy, and work seemed to me to be the way, and certainly Rudy promoted that. You know, our sitting in class is to sit here and take these deep, profound breaths and ask as deeply as one can go for help to surrender, to let go of all of our, whatever your mind tells you, you have to let go of. Your impurity, your unworthiness, your weakness, your limitations, your inertia, your lack of perfection. We have to let go of all of that stuff in order to be able to really receive and open to the gift of spiritual energy. And I think for most people in this class who came as students of Rudy, this is what we do. We sit, we ask, we struggle against our own limitations, and we fight to become that person that we imagine Rudy to have been. And then I come along, and I'm not the only person to come along in this way, to tell you there's nothing to do. There's no struggle, there's no effort, there's no drama to get anywhere, that the very place you're trying to get to is right here. And that completely goes against the grain. It cuts across everything you've been taught by Rudy, and you go, so what's Bruce telling me that Rudy didn't tell me, and who's right? How does this work? So, the cleanest answer I can give you, and I've probably said it now over the years, so it's not going to be completely new. Most of us are deeply dissatisfied with who we are. We find ourselves in some ways limited. This doesn't apply to everybody, but for most people, when they really look inside, they think that they are less than perfect. That in some deep and very real way, we know that we're in a sense full of shit. That we create a presentation for the world that is not totally authentic, that we live these lives of storytelling, that we create a narrative for ourselves about who we are, and we try to sell it to everybody we know. And we all know that it's kind of not really true. We put the best face, the best picture on our story, but we know something isn't really right. So often when I sit with people privately, the smiling face goes away and they say, I hate my life. Everything is wrong. They give me the truth, if you will. And it's always sad in a way to hear, not bad, because it's important that people express it. But there is a real sense that things are not right. And one has to figure out, how do I set it right? How do I get my life to be right? There's a disconnect somewhere. That's where effort comes in. That's really where Rudy and the work comes in. Because everybody knows there are things you can do. Look at all the self-help books on the counters of all the bookstores. There are so many things you can do to make yourself a better person. You can eat better. You can be a more compassionate person. You can sleep more. You can do a lot more exercise. You can find your truth. You can go inside and change habits. There are all these things you can do to make yourself more attractive in your own eyes, more worthy. There's stuff you can do, and if you take a deep breath and you ask inside for help to surrender, what are you really trying to say in most cases? How do I become better? How do I become more effective? How do I become more available and able in the world? That's really what you're asking, And then you can actually find all sorts of answers, and you can find all sorts of things that will work. You can find an inspiration inside to work harder, to do the things you have to do to give you the career that you want, to get you the relationship that you want, to bring you the stuff that you want life to bring you. There's things you can do. Seemingly, at some point maybe not. But there's so much you can try to do. And I know in my own life, Rudy inspired me to work my ass off. And it paid off. I don't want to go into my whole story, but I would work every night after I would come home from work to try to build a second career, a writing career. And I would write every night. So Blanche would take care of Joshua, and he was very little, and I would write, as I used to say, one scene a night, because I didn't have time to write a movie over a period of time. I would write one scene a night. When I lived in the ashram and I had a week off, I moved into a hotel, and I said, I'm not coming out of here till I have a screenplay. And I did it twice, and both times I came out with a finished screenplay within 7 days to 12 days. And nothing ever happened with those screenplays, but the muscle of doing it, the effort, the pushing, really began to create something real in the world. And out of all of that reality, a career happened. And a career happened that fulfilled and satisfied a lot of my stuff. But I still felt incomplete. I still felt wanting. I could still sit and do my spiritual practice, and I would find these moments of incredibly beautiful, sweet surrenders and openness and availability, and I would hold on to it for 5 days, 10 days, a month, and it would go away, and I would go, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? And I couldn't get there. I couldn't get there. The there that I was looking for was always somewhere else. A lot of lives are really messed up. A lot of people mess up their lives as they go along, and a lot of people come in with stuff already in play. Call it karma, if you will. Lives are really messed up. You do things that hurt people or hurt yourself. You you marry the wrong person, you take the wrong job track, you listen to your parents and not to your own heart. I mean, on and on. People make huge messes of their lives. And then they try to figure out, how do I now, with all of these complicated things that made life so twisted, how do I get back to some purity? Now the life itself is really messed up. It's not your friend. It's not helping you. It's really complicating everything. What do? Well, Rudy's work is really valuable at that point. You really have to ask. You really have to make efforts. You really have to do the work of the world to unravel, to unwind, to take apart the threads that have tied you into the knots that you are. You have to undo as much of that as you can. In some cases, where you've done really bad things and you've really messed up, you need to do this thing which I call, and other people call, pilgrimage. You have to do something that makes you atone for the stuff you have created and done in your life. And what's a pilgrimage? It's a huge effort to go to what? Some holy spot and ask for forgiveness. But you can't just get on an airplane and fly there because it's too easy. You have to do the walk. You have to crawl on your knees, as some people do. You have to bow every other step, as the Tibetans often do. You have to find a way to make an effort that you believe in. An effort that says, I want to atone for the terrible things that I did. I want to unravel the things that I did that I can't live with. And so you make this huge kind of effort to go somewhere, whether it be Mecca or whether it be to visit the source teacher of your practice. Whatever it is, you make the effort to go. There's a wonderful movie that I saw not long ago called The Way, which is Martin Sheen and Emilio Estevez's film. Emilio wrote and directed it, and Martin stars in it. And it's about a father whose son has gone on a pilgrimage and is killed on the second day in an avalanche or something. And the father, who had a very tenuous relationship with his son, decides to finish the pilgrimage for his son. And he had no need in his mind to go on a pilgrimage, but he had a need to make peace with his son. And of course he goes on the pilgrimage, and of course the pilgrimage, and it doesn't play as expected, but the pilgrimage serves him in profound ways. If that's your need in life, go on the pilgrimage. I think a lot of you who come here in your 2-hour, 3-hour car rides kind of are on a pilgrimage. You make a true effort to come here. And as Rudy would say, the effort to come here is in many ways more meaningful and real than the effort you make in the class. Mm-hmm. It's just the ride here. It's the fact that you got in the car and said, I want something bad enough that I'm going to work and I'm going to make the effort to go get it. So here we all are, making effort. And what happens with that effort? What happens? Not enough. What happens with these efforts in the mind of the person who makes it is, it didn't work. You're still not there. I tried everything. I went on a pilgrimage. I hitchhiked around the world. I visited ashrams. I visited holy teachers. I tried everything. And I came back and I'm the same schmuck I was before I left. And you really, really experience that. You experience that it didn't work. And then what happens, and this is the key, is you give up. You give up. You don't know how to do it. You've done everything you know how to do. You've made every effort you've known how to make, and none of it worked. And you just go, I give up. I can't do it. I can't do it. Which is absolutely the truth. You can't. I'm not worthy. It's true. You're not. I failed. True. You have. But what happens when you give up? Exactly what Rudy has at the core of his teaching, which is you surrender. You ask for help to surrender. Or you just suddenly don't even ask for help. You just go, I give up, I surrender. What happens when you surrender? That's when it begins. That's when the true practice begins. It's what you've been trying to do for 40 years. After 40 years of failure, you finally do the thing you're supposed to do. You stop trying. You let go. You just go. You might even stop your practice. I know people who have. And out of that, 40 years of ineffective practice and the sudden, truly letting go, something starts to shift. And it has nothing to do with your effort. It has everything to do with your not making an effort. Life just becomes real. It becomes real. You become a humble person who doesn't know how to get there or what there is, who doesn't know how to do it, who just gets up in the morning and lives their day, and just has their breakfast and goes to work and lives with what's in front of them. And then, if you really, really were honest about your pilgrimage and honest about the work you were making, what you have done in giving up is allowed that which is to announce itself. The thing you were looking for, this is an ancient teaching, the thing you're looking for is this, right here. The thing that's been in front of your eyes the entire time, beneath your feet, supporting you in your sleep. The very people who surround you in your life, the ones who are close to you and the ones who are peripheral. This is who and what you are. This is your life. This is what is. Everything you're looking for is right here. This is, if you will, the manifestation that you've been seeking. But who's the you that's been seeking? And what you discover when you let go, when you surrender, when you just accept, is there's something alive in you, something appreciative, something grateful, something simple. And it's just there. And where is it? Well, you kind of perhaps will feel it first of all in your heart. You'll feel this, gratitude is the best word. And you just feel this presence of thankfulness. And then you realize this gratitude, this presence, has never not been there. It's the most familiar thing there is in your life. It's been with you every second. Does it announce itself to you? For most people, no. And you know why it doesn't announce itself to you? Because you don't pay any attention to it. You act like it's not there. You live your life in complete denial of yourself. You walk around going, I want, I need, I don't like, I'm miserable. You go on and on with all of your stuff. You pay attention completely to the outside. You pay no attention to this, the very thing that's there. Most people, or many people, don't acknowledge their own self. They don't ask it. Even when they say, help me to surrender, they're talking to an abstract, the God up in the sky. Help me to surrender, to Buddha, to Christ, to Yahweh. Help me, help me. And you're looking to this thing, when the thing that you're looking for is right there. It's just right there. It's the absolute essence of you. The absolute reality of you. And you're looking everywhere else to this abstraction when this is, concrete's the wrong word, but Rudy called it a flow. There's this like, it's right here. And I'm telling you, if you can sit still, and I've talked about this endlessly now, let go of the past and let go of the future. And I mean the past from 1 second ago and the future from 1 second from now. And just let go of that. Just sit there and you'll go, oh, it's so familiar. It's so you. It's just sitting there. And as I've said before, it doesn't have a story. The story is the mind. The thing that's true is the no mind. It's just there. And it announces itself, I call it as a sense of well-being. Just well-being. Or being. Not even well. Just being. But if you really move into it, lean into it, this idea of well-being becomes pervasive. It supports you. It is you. It is you. I was talking to someone last week about suicide. I know this sounds like a diversion, but I said, you go, and your story disappears, but this is still there. You get rid of all that story, and then there's like, the one thing you try to get rid of is still there. You can't get rid of yourself. It's infinite. It's eternal. And the moment you get rid of all that other stuff and you realize there's this loving thing there, well, in a spiritual sense, if you can just sit quietly, all that stuff that causes you suffering and pain will at some point, if not disappear, not be a problem. But if you try to get rid of it, if you try to knock it out, if you do it out of hate and spite and misery, you can knock it out, and then you're faced with the one thing that you most wanted and in a way most feared, yourself. The person who tries to get rid of it will sit there at that moment in a state of such shock and regret and fear and horror, if you will, that they will run as fast as they can from themselves. That's why you don't want to try to end this on your own, because it's such an ignorant, remarkably foolish act. It just creates havoc and chaos. But if you spend your life working spiritually, when you finally truly surrender to what is, in a sense the journey is over. Your spiritual search is over. The thing you've been looking for is right there. It's just there. Then when you come to a class like this, you don't have to struggle and make an effort to get there. You're here. And you sit there. And what happens in a class like this is this collective awareness, this collective energy, this collective shared being amplifies. And we all totally interweave into this sense of a fabric of being. And that fabric of being is bigger than our own individual sense of self. It's a collective self. The collective self takes people who are hungry to know who they are, gathering in a space of satsang and acknowledging the amazement of being a singular truth, a singular self. That's what we experience in a class like this. And there is a tiny little bit of work going on in this class because there are people here who are feeling not connected quite. but they've brought themselves to the table and they're sitting here saying, please. And so there's a teacher involved, and the teacher sits and, in a sense, vibrates with you and helps take this sense of disconnect and reconnects it, or takes a sense of sourness that you might feel somewhere in you and makes it a little bit sweeter, or takes this feeling inside you of unworthiness and helps wash that away. And so by the time the class comes to an end, you have a collective of people who have found a way to be whole with each other. And that's something that is a rare event in this planet. And it's something we get to share here and now. You have to work your ass off to get to the point where you realize it won't work, where you finally really do let go and you really do surrender. And then in this collective mode, you rise to one of the most beautiful spaces that humans can inhabit, which is a shared truth, a shared oneness, a sense that we are one being, not multiple beings. Even though we experience it as multiplicities, we are the ocean of being. And what happens in a collective like that, as you all see when we go downstairs for brunch, it's like we're kind to each other, we know each other, we acknowledge each other. There's not a lot of competition. People pass fruit without having to be asked. There's just sort of simple things that take place, and we all kind of live rather nicely with each other. And that's kind of what it's about. It's, when people are suffering, people are compassionate and reach out to help. We're there for one another. There's a sense of community. There's a sense of civilization. There's a sense of life as it should be led. And it's very beautiful. It's really wonderful. In many ways, it's not unlike a good church group or a synagogue or a mosque. People really care about each other. But what happens in most societies is, if you're not motivated by, influenced by yourself, what are you motivated by? By your ego mind. What's your ego mind trying to do with life? Have advantage. Get what you want, even if it's at the risk of hurting somebody else. That's what we're all trying to do. Most of us are out there going, what about me? And the difference is, in a spiritual life, you begin to eradicate that to some very large degree. And it's just about being truly with the assemblage, if you will, the group, the whole. And if you get to a place inside yourself where this awareness wakens for you, you begin to treat everybody in the world, not just the people in this particular environment, but you begin to treat and envision and see everybody as part of that self. Everyone is part of yourself. Not your own personal self, the self. Everyone. And then you live that life, whatever that life is. But I will tell you, it's a sweeter, more remarkable life than the ego-driven me life that most people engage in, or the wildly unconscious life that most people engage in, and a life that creates so much drama and so much knottedness that trying to get out of it takes a teacher like Rudy to help you see the amount of effort and time and work that's going to be involved to unravel the knots of unhappiness that you have created. The hardest thing for me is watching people get themselves deeper and deeper into the mess of life. It's really painful, because you know how much work, and if there are multiple lifetimes, you get a sense of how many multiple lifetimes they're going to need to undo the stupidity of what they've just done this time around. And really, the truth is, all you have to do at any moment is realize there's nothing to do. The reality of your life is this moment. The reality is this moment with everything that's in it. And if you connect to yourself and to the truth of this moment, everything you need, moment to moment, to unravel your life will appear in front of you. And ultimately, I will tell you, the universe will take everything away, your suffering, your pain, and everything else. It will take everything away until you are left with nothing. But the nothing you're left with is complete liberation. And we're all on that journey. And every one of us is going to have everything taken from us. Everything. We're going to have our health taken. We're going to have people we love taken. We're going to have our stuff taken. And of course, in the very end, everything taken away. And if you have learned to be present with what is, you will watch it go and you will find deeper and deeper reservoirs of stillness and surrender. And there will be no loss, there will be freedom. Everything that's taken frees you. Everything. You become freer and freer and freer, and then the ride is over. So, that's the journey. I hope you understand the effort and why it's important, and the non-effort, which is at a certain point, when effort doesn't work, you start the next part of the practice. But until you get to that place, you have to do the effort. Any questions?
I want to say something about last week. I had a wonderful lesson that I didn't plan on. I got confused about times and coming up here. And I'm in Michael's driveway, and I'm seeing that scene, because he'd already gone because of our confusion, and I'm seeing that scene in the Woody Allen movie. What movie is it where the other people are on the train and they're having a party and everything's in color, and he's on a train where everything's black and white and it's like boring, and he's wondering, wait a minute, why am I not on that other train? So I'm kind of standing in the driveway going, I can't meditate, I can't go to the wonderful brunch, I don't see Bruce, I don't see Blanche, I don't see the people, oh my gosh, and I was like in that infancy period of screaming and suddenly going, what? Wait a minute. You know how to meditate. You know how to find a beautiful place. You know how to do something really beautiful. What is this drama? Which I think is just a minuscule place of what I do a lot. Thinking, I think you had said it like 2 weeks ago, you think you're supposed to be on that other ship with the other people on that other trip, but you're not. You're on the ship and you're waiting for that other ship. Why are you not on the right ship? And I guess what you keep trying to tell us is that this is the ship, whatever it's doing and wherever it's going, you're on it right now.
The important thing to understand is that people make this mistake all the time. They believe that spiritual life feels good. That spiritual life removes you from suffering, removes you from discomfort. The truth is, spiritual life puts you where you are now. It starts where you are. And the moment you understand that, it transforms whatever you're experiencing into something holy. It doesn't take it away, it just makes you aware. This is what is. It's a profound practice. You sit with what is, and it becomes what must be. And you allow it, you surrender to it, and it does its work. It just does its work, and it's going to work on you until there's no you left to work on. And then you're free. And freedom is what you want, and freedom is not to get caught in being you. And it takes a lot of practice. Anyone else?
I used a phrase this week to someone. I said, clawing at the walls of reality.
Clawing?
Clawing at the walls of reality.
Yeah.
And there's no walls, but you do that.
Yeah. I mean, reality is what we're looking for, and we're all in it. And the only thing that separates you from reality is your mind trying to create a different picture of what it is. If you pull your mind out of the picture, you'll see reality.
You spoke about letting go of our life story, and I was wondering, is it useful to be very aware of the elements of your life story to sort of help that process? For instance, if you're dreaming, and you don't know you're dreaming, how can you wake up in the midst of your dream?
You put it this way. Letting go of your life story is not denying your life story. It's not throwing it out the window. What it means is that you're not referencing it every instant of your life. When you are looking at birds through binoculars and you see this gorgeous bird and you're just there with it, you're just there, present. You're not sitting around thinking about, how hard it was to get there or what's going to happen tomorrow for breakfast. You're not in that mode. You're just there. That's all it is. The joy of being there. That's all it is. And most of us, even when you're there, the mind comes in and does something to mess it up. So that they're never really fully there. It's... I don't know how to describe this. I mean, most people are never present. They're always somewhere else when they're where they are. And the noise of going on, they never stop and go, oh my God, I'm here. I'm really here. It's a shock to the system to know this is really happening, that you're actually there. And real presence is something that you experience when you're really there, like when you're writing an email or you're driving in the car. There are endless moments where you're just there, but nothing in you is going, hey, I'm here. This is the moment. This is what it looks like. Nothing is doing that. But it really is, that's when you're there. You're going, it feels so good. Just driving down the road and the trees are gorgeous and the moon is just about to come up and you're just going, oh, that's presence. But people don't know that's presence because nobody's going, hey, that's presence. If you had a Zen master sitting next to you, they would go, hey. And you would go, oh, wow, that's it. That's it.
We should carry our own stick around.
Well, yes, exactly. Exactly. You should, because that's all it is. This is presence. It's not anything else. And it's so familiar because you have it all the time. It's when you're not ruminating about everything else, but really just there. I mean, if you're sitting in the car and you're going, then you're not there, or you're there in that. And even that's okay. If you recognize you're there in this insanity, that's okay because you're there. But if you're really there on the road and the air is coming, you open your windows, people don't do that anymore, but you open your windows and you let the air come in and it's like, that's all it is. And you're looking for this magical, extraordinary thing. Well, it is magical and extraordinary. It's just not other. It's this. And if you really look at it, it really is magical and remarkable and extraordinary. And when that finally hits you, you wake up. You realize you're never not there. You're never not in a place of miracle.
I can't remember the name of the movie, Nicolas Cage, where he's hunting the rare orchid. The first 4 minutes, there's a monologue, and if you want a taste of someone else's brain doing what yours is doing constantly, it's fabulous. I think it might even be in the dark, and he's just, I'm going to have breakfast, and just on and on and on. And it makes you laugh at yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, all you have to do is look at your own monologue. It just goes on. It's really it's hardly ever off.
Adaptations are really just...
Oh yeah, adaptation.
There's probably a YouTube video of it. It's fabulous.
Last week you mentioned to me to not stop making so much of an effort, and it's been a really hard thing for me not to do, you know. So I really tried this week, and today in the class, I said, I'm asking my higher self, help me with this thing, because I'm just not doing it, you know, the mind keeps getting in the way. And I'm really tired today because I didn't sleep much. And I think the tiredness actually helped me. And so the answer came, just be still, be very still, and then become one with you.
Well,
And
you're hitting a lot of the right notes. There's a little thing plaque downstairs that says, be still and know that I am. That's really kind of what's wanted. Don't use the word higher self, maybe. Just self.
Did I say higher self?
You did. I say don't use higher because that separates you from the self on some level. Yourself is yourself. It has great height and great depth, but it's all yourself. So when you say higher self, you're giving it a separate aspect from you, and you're making it difficult to reach. It's not difficult to reach. It's present. It's really present. And you're not trying to connect with me so much. The self that you connect with and that I connect with is the same self. So when you connect with self, and you can't ever not connect with it because you wouldn't be alive if you weren't connected to it, when you connect with self or become conscious in it, you are conscious of, you are connected to me, not Bruce, but to the self, the same self that I'm sitting with, and everyone in this room is connected to that self. So connecting to self is the whole goal, and because you're already connected, all you have to do is realize that you're connected to self, and you're done. You don't even have to connect to self because you're connected to self. How could you disconnect to self? Even if you blow your brains out, you can't disconnect from self. You can't. It's impossible. You are yourself, always, except for the fact that your mind puts you in the past and the future, and you forget where the self lives, which is in this moment. Where else could it live? I mean, it's in the past, sort of. It's in the future, sort of. But it's real here. I mean, it was there, and it will be there, but really it's only here. It's the only place you can find it is here. If you think you can find it in the future, you can, but you'll find it here. And if you dig back into the past, you really won't find it because it's not there anymore. It's right with you. The idea of searching for the self anywhere but in this moment is crazy, because it's not going to be there. I mean, it will be there, assuming you get to the future, but it will be there as this moment. And the thing that you're looking for is kind of crazy, because what are you looking for? The thing that's right there. You're looking at it. This is it. And the mind can't comprehend what I'm saying. The mind absolutely goes, duh. You know, it doesn't get it for a second. It really doesn't. But all I can tell you, something at some point, the self will just go, hello. And you'll go, oh my God, there it is. It's always been there. And then you'll realize there's never a time where it's not, ever. Every second you walk through life, even when it's miserable or when it's beautiful, it's there. And at some point you just go, and you fall completely backward into it. And you just, all right, you let it drive, you let it take charge, you let it run the show. It is running the show. You just stop thinking you are. Or you stop being somewhere else trying to, if I do this and I do that, everything will be fine there. It's not going to be fine because you've planned it. You know, it's just going to be what it is. It knows what to do so much better than you do. It will tell you what to do now to live in the future. It has your best interest at heart all the time. It tells you what to do. Or you marry an amazing woman like you and I both did. They'll take care of it. They really will. You don't have to worry. You know, they take care of it. Somebody takes care of it, and if there's no other person in your life, yourself takes care of it. It takes care of everything. It really does. Even when it smashes you into a highway, into another car. Believe me, it's working. It's working in its own way. I mean, it's not the best way to wake you up, but it's a way. You know, the self knows it's got to do stuff. It really is determined to make you aware of you, and ultimately to wake you up to the truth of your absolute emptiness and freedom. That's what it wants to do. And you'll never understand it, but you'll know it. You'll totally know it. And you'll walk around grateful. George.
And I'm just thinking that there's this great cosmic joke that with all these metaphors that we all know, which are real, just a matter where you go, there you are. You know, and it's like 8 billion of them.
Of course,
Like
of
some-
course. And it's like getting it. I mean, if I had a board and I could smash it over everybody's head and say, come on already, you know? But I can't, it doesn't work. I mean, it will just give you a headache or it will smash
We
you.
all know it. We're running everywhere else.
Exactly. The whole goal of all of this verbiage is to have you stop long enough to get it. That's all that's wanted.
Before, I'm going to rewind, when you were talking about everything being taken away, I started hearing a line of the song in my head. And I just sort of went into a little space thinking how it always stumped me when I heard it. Loved the song, but I never got it. And then one day, I got it. It's the Janis Joplin song, and the line is, freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. And that's really what you're saying.
Yeah. It's what I'm saying and what Janis Joplin said, and what a lot.
She probably didn't say
No,
it.
well, but all the songs you love are trying. Everything is trying to get at the same thing, and the great metaphor is love, where you give up you for somebody else. You give up a part of you to become part of someone else. That's really what happens. You think it's all additive. It's not. You know, being in love with someone is the biggest risk you can take. You know, the courage that it takes to give over your life to love is huge, and it's one of the great metaphors for awakening, really, in many ways. And you know, we hear all these stories about, you know, the great love affairs, you know, and people losing love. You know, people love the great love dies or goes away, and it leaves you with nothing, but it leaves you with yourself. It leaves you with ultimately with truth. The great love stories they always die. You know, and you find something greater. Or my favorite film of Casablanca. You know, I talk about it a lot. In Casablanca, Humphrey Bogart's the love of his life. He gives her up to something greater, and he ends up with his friendship. You know, this is the beginning of a wonderful friendship. But he's found nobility. He's found courage. He's found himself. That's what we're all looking for. When you give up everything, you find yourself. Not that you have to literally give it up, but ultimately you do literally give it up. But while you're alive, of course you want to hold it. That's why we're here. Touch it, feel it, smell it, engage it, love it, and then consciously let it go. And that's how it works. Anybody else?
It's one more metaphor. Rumi, what you are seeking is seeking you.
Yeah. Rumi's, anything, you can pick up Rumi and open any page, and he will talk about exactly this.
That's one that's been in my head.
Yeah, it's a good one. Okay, guys. No class next week or the week after. And then we'll be back, I think, the second week of July. And that'll be the last big push. And I don't know how long Blanche and I will be here, but somewhere either through mid-September or early October. And then we're moving on. So we'll see you guys, I hope, next time.